Right, day one of shooting on United. Sounds a bit weird when I put it like that. Quite a logistic filled day in the sense that it was up, pick up Charlie, it's obviously Charlie's assistant. Hi Charlie, you're not on camera. Get to Eltham train station, get a train from there to London Victoria, get a train from London Victoria, or tube from London Victoria to London Euston. From London Euston, get a Virgin, what they call it, what's the word? Pendulinium train to Manchester Piccadilly, get a taxi from there to the hotel, as we were meant to meet both Paddy and Jimmy Murphy Jr. around 2 o'clock for their interviews. Bunch of issues with that, the first of which being that I called Paddy, because Paddy is very much a call me when you want me sort of type of man, which this suits me in terms of being a producer. I don't know, obviously other people probably like more structured interviews and clients and blah blah blah, but for me that suits me. So I rang him up as we got off the train, because obviously on the train you go into tunnels and stuff, it's the effort to obviously get a reception. Spoke to him and he was like, oh today, yeah no sorry, I've got to take my wife to the doctors. He sounded very sincere obviously, because it weren't sort of planned, and he's Scottish and he threw a few feckins in there. If you've got to take my feckin' wife, that's the worst impression you'll ever hear. Anyway, point being, he had a doctor's appointment with his wife, and obviously I've been watching his show since I was about 11, so a little bit like, not starstruck, but a little bit in awe. I didn't want to then be like, when else can you do, because I need you. It was like, that's fine, don't be silly, don't want to put you out, but I did manage to be like, you free Sunday? And he's like, that's a non-match day, innit? I'm like, yes. He was like, Sunday, I will be about on Sunday, just give me a call midday on Sunday. The issue in my mind is that that's what he said about today, and obviously it didn't work out, but I worship the ground the man walks on, so I'll just take his word for it. And worst case scenario, I know that Steve at MUTV can get my question on his show at very minimum, so obviously we can include that in the final piece, but obviously to sit down with him would be exceptional. The other issue, which is kind of a blessing in disguise that Paddy obviously couldn't do today, is that the hotel decided they couldn't, well, not that they couldn't facilitate the interview, but obviously they got to go via head office, because there's nothing like leaving it to the last minute like me. So when I called them, they're like, we've got to go via head office, and they've got to talk to a PR team, blah blah blah, and the time which it will take for them to decide whether or not you can do it, get back to us, and then for us to speak to you, could be well after the point in which you're interviewing Jimmy Murphy Jr. and Paddy Crerand, which obviously was the case, because at the point when we arrived, we were told our room would be ready. However, very vain. Old Trafford is literally out that window, literally there. Back there's the Manchester Canal. Manchester Canal's beautiful, but I'd rather look at Old Trafford. So while they sorted our room, changed it for a one at the front, which he said would take about half hour, we scattered locations to sit down with Jimmy Murphy Jr., which, as I say, is a blessing as to why Paddy couldn't do today. But regardless, obviously that's not the way in which that we tried hotel football, which is literally a 30-second stretch up the road just before Old Trafford. It's owned by the Class of 92 players who obviously used to play for Manchester United, and obviously they often do functions. But clearly they're more organised than me, because when you go in there and you're like, is there any way in which you could facilitate an interview? They're like, nah. The lady downstairs, Lisa, on the counter, the reception, she was like, you could try Witherspoons on the road, because she knows the person who owns it is a manager called Ben, because he tends to do a lot of stuff. And where the Premier Inn franchise and the hotel football is obviously owned by ex-players and blah blah blah, they can't afford to just say, yeah, come on in, whereas apparently the fellow at Witherspoons could. And literally as we were about to turn to go out the door to go Witherspoons, behind me I hear a voice go, are you Billy? And I turn around, it's Jimmy Murphy Jr. Obviously I know his face from the private documentary Vimeo link that MUTV sent me. So I shook his hand and obviously all that. And the conclusion we came to is that we would have to do the interview on the public footpath bridge, literally adjacent to Old Trafford, which scared the crap out of me. That's my phone, great. Yes, which both, check on my focus please. Yep, cool. Which, yeah, scared the crap out of me, because outside audio tends to not be very good, and we were forecasted for rain and all sorts today. both my mother and Charlie's mother are like, it's meant to snow, and then we're up here and it's like, well, it's not snowing, so whatever. I don't think that's forecasted for today, but point being, weather and blah blah and all outside audio, I struggle with that. That's one of, honestly, pain in my ass. But needs must, and he had to be away for I think it was for a doctor's appointment with his wife, a CR UK appointment, by 3:30, and obviously he got here at 2 o'clock. So needs must, and we went out and very haphazardly set up on the bridge, and it was probably very arse about the face, and it's not the way in which anything should be by a long stretch, but it was somewhat of like a learning curve. So when it comes to Paddy, I will have something in place. Either we just have him in the hotel room upstairs without maybe telling the hotel, I don't think I'm allowed to say that really, but whatever. Yeah. Maybe see if he's got someone with an Old Trafford, because there's a commentator on MUTV. He's going to be there tomorrow commentating on the game, and also surely there's someone in his contact list that could be like, just even if it's just a little like a viewer, you know, an owner's box in the, not owners, but like a supporters box in the stadium or anywhere, or he's a man of the gym. He loves the gym, and if it's not one within his own house, his public gym, then surely if he's in there every day, and he's not going to get bombarded by people, because obviously he goes there anyway, then maybe we could do it there. We'll have to weigh out what's happening, but obviously I really want to get Paddy because he's a European Cup winner and he reflects what we're trying to achieve. So obviously you've got Jimmy Murphy Jr., who is the son of the man who almost single-handedly brought United through one of the biggest tragedies, if not the biggest tragedy in football, out on the other side. And then not only, obviously, because the point of this documentary is to reflect how there's always a constant rebuild. There was the Second World War, every club around the country had to rebuild, as did Manchester United, except every other club didn't have a fatal plane crash 10 years later, do you know what I mean? So having Paddy, who was part of that rebuild from 63, winning the league in 65, 67, and obviously the European Cup in 68, totally highlights that. And as a commentator and supporter, he's seen every era of Manchester United since, so he needs to be got. And as I say, if not, the backup is the is getting on his show. But point being, I'm going off topic, the point being, we got Jimmy on the bridge, on the footpath, and literally single tripod. Rightly or wrongly at the time, it was because our bags were still in like a holding room, because obviously we couldn't, as I say, we had to wait for the room to be swapped to the front. Only brought one tripod, so Charlie had to be handheld at the side. And at the time of recording, the start of recording, the angle was perfect, everything about it was perfect, and then about 5 minutes in, the sun decided to bare its ugly head, and then it was just, I mean, I don't mean to be rude to the fella, but obviously where Jimmy Murphy Jr. has a lack of hair, it all just reflects off his head, innit? So that was an issue. So that camera angle is very limited in what we can do. But obviously the way in which I used that Jimmy Murphy Jr. interview, I don't know, a mixture of A, what he said and the way in which he answered the question, and B, the lack of a second camera angle, obviously just a master shot, means I'm going to have to use his interview in a different manner to which I originally planned, but obviously I'll deal with that as it comes. But in regards to it, he was a very nice fella. I bought him some chocolates as a thank you, but he didn't want to take them. There was a slight disruption, which was on camera, because some fella that he knows rocked up, and he didn't really recognise him, but the fella was very keen on recognising him. And it's not like, oh my god, you're the son of Jimmy Murphy, because whatever, because he's not that level of famous or even well known, even around obviously Old Trafford. He gets mistaken for Nobby Stiles a lot, apparently, but whatever. The point being, that was a bit of a disruption, and then he buggered off. And then we sort of wrapped up with about half hour left, and he took us to see a picture, which I have a photograph of, and it's like it's a billboard at Old Trafford, and it's a picture of his dad, obviously Jimmy Murphy, with some Matt Busby. I can't remember who else in the photo. Who was in the photo? I feel like it might have been Bob Chow. It was obviously another coach. Can't remember, but cut very long story short, he was telling us, like, because that is a photo that like Manchester United got off of his family, because he recognised the picture. He's like, if you look, my dad's shirt is ripped and blah blah blah, and we'd love to have got some shots of him in front of that, in front of Old Trafford, etc. But then the geezer that obviously came up and recognised him came back again with another fella, and he was like, what did he say? He was like, you're right, Jimmy, I do the talk at Munich on the anniversary, and I'm like, that's all well and good, and you're probably the most diehard supporter I could have ever met. But A, I'm not going to stop and ask you for an interview because you're in the middle of smoking a fag and you don't look like you're into it. And B, you're distracting from my interview, for which I still have half hour, so could you maybe not? But he was in 5 minutes worth of conversation with Jimmy, and he looked at me and he went, "Right, see you later, boys." So we had no choice but to sort of just move, which is a bit of a piss take, but I mean, it is what it is. In regards to the interview, like I say, he was nice. He gave lots of stories that, as a supporter, were nice to hear. In terms of documentary, it's gold stuff. He's referring to people like Sir Bobby Charlton, who to me is an absolute idol, on first name basis, which isn't strange within football, but the way in which he was doing it was like he knows them, which is great. He was telling a lot of stories. There's a few things I don't think I can include. Obviously, I sat on camera now. There's talk of Manchester United, a committee within Manchester United that want to build a statue of his father and maybe put it next to the one of Sir Matt Busby, which I don't necessarily. I'm all for him having a statue because the man's an absolute idol, but I don't know if it should necessarily go next to Sir Matt, whatever, or maybe renaming the stand after him. And I think there's a slight juxtaposition for him in the sense that he makes a bit of a career off of these interviews and working at Manchester United and MUTV, etc. Because I mean, he carries his dad's name, for Christ's sake, whereas his sisters and his brothers, and I think even his wife, aren't too keen on him doing it. And I think when the family are asked, "Can we build a statue of your dad, and can we rename a stand?" they're like, "Nah, thank you." And he has to, for the sake of his family, maybe side with them, but he can't publicly be anti-Manchester United and say, "No, I don't want the statue because my family don't want it," because then that ruins his relationship with MUTV, etc. So between that and the fact that he revealed 1 or 2 players are like, obviously, that are in an old age now, are like ill, as in like ill, that was quite weird and surreal to hear. And obviously, don't get me wrong, that's not him being on a personal basis, that's still sort of through the grapevine, but it's something that you wouldn't know as a general supporter, and it's good for the sake of the interview, and we'll have to see how that pans out in terms of use. But the issue is he wasn't keen to sign a release form, and I think had I pushed for it, then, but you know, if I waved under his nose, maybe, but at the end of the day, no release form was signed. He's very, like, I can get it in writing that he's happy to be on camera and he's fine for the interview. But if I were to include any of that, even just within house for the sake of FMP, that could cause some problems. So I don't think I can get away with including any of that. He was a nice fella, shook his hand after we were sort of not waved on, but you know, sort of almost not forced, but like socially forced out of the conversation. Thanked him for his time, went back to the hotel, sorted out footage, blah blah blah. Had a bit of a sit down. The Infinity War trailer came out today, so I watched that instead of, you know, thinking about the world outside. And then we went and did a bit of filming around the outside of Old Trafford. The thing is, you're not, obviously, unless you get permission, which G4S, GP, or whatever they're called, security didn't get back to me. You can't, unless you have their permission, which obviously I don't because they didn't get back to me, you can't put, you know, legs on the ground, you can't put tripods on the ground. However, a fig rig, I believe, is fine. That being said, when people in high vis, you know, Manchester United security see you with a bloody steering wheel, they're like, hang on, you can't film. But we still went round parts of Old Trafford because at no point did anyone approach us. People seemed to be fussiest, whatever. But we got some nice shots, like I say, there was the Monopoly one, the whole Munich tunnel, which I'm very keen to reflect, because obviously it's the whole tragedy of Munich. Did a sort of panning shot of each one of them, a still photo, a bit of the ever burning candle. Got the holy trinity of George Best, Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law, the statue, because again that's a reflection of the rebuild that came after. Got Sir Matt's statue, obviously, you got Sir Alex, they all culminate in, look, here's tragedy, success, blah blah blah. I mean, it goes without saying. And other just general areas of Old Trafford, the signs, etc. But again, Steve from MUTV, that obviously I've spoken to on Twitter, he made the point that whatever you don't, because obviously when I didn't get permission from security, I hadn't heard back, obviously, with a day to get up here, I panicked. Well, not panicked, I was a bit stressed, and I was like, I haven't been given permission, should I just do a tour of Old Trafford to get shots inside? He went, maybe pay for a tour, film the outside, do what you want, but whatever you don't get, I can just get from the archives. We've got an archive at MUTV, it's fine, I can get you footage, it's fine. So there's always that fallback option. Went Tesco's and got some grub, brought it back, went and got KFC. Waited about half hour for KFC.
40 minutes nearly.
Did that, and obviously now I'm back here. I'm quite stumped in regards to tomorrow, and obviously you'll see that in tomorrow's diary. As Jimmy Murphy Jr. said in like it was literally like his second email. He goes to see the youth, which obviously he highlighted today. He goes to see the youth football, the under-18s, which he'll be at tomorrow from about 10, kicks off about 11. We might go see that, but again, for a mixture of security and safeguarding issues, in the sense that there are, pardon me, a lot of players that are under the age of 18 can't really rock up with a camera. He was told that he can't bring a camera himself. I don't really know why he'd want to bring a camera to the under-18s, but whatever, that's none of my business. But the point being, we can't just rock up with a camera, but we might obviously go do that. Maybe the slight bit of networking, because obviously there's all sorts of other players, people affiliated to the club that will go and watch the youth football, so maybe a bit of networking in that sense, and see if maybe, because obviously we're only up here tomorrow and then Sunday, but maybe swing another interview with someone, maybe even if you get contacts to do a Skype thing to get pictures and stuff and archive stuff, that'd be great. So we'll see about that. We'll probably go to that, but really in terms of shooting, there's not much that can be done tomorrow. There's obviously the game on, and that's an evening game, so as it gets a bit later and it starts to fill up with supporters, maybe a bit of filming. But again, not only will they not allow, obviously I won't bring a tripod anyway, but not only would they not allow the fig rig, even if they did, I can't be weaving in and out of like big geezers with a bloody steering wheel, like it'd be what you doing, mate. So be handheld, maybe that'd give it the more authentic feel, but really some nice steady shots of all the supporters and the signs, that'd be quite nice. And bear in mind it's an evening game, the neon Manchester United lights would be on, it'd be this nice reflection of red light on obviously dark sort of blacky blue evening. Then we've got the game, which that's my relaxed